I am Aristotle. If you're curious about how to live wisely, this video is for you. But first, if philosophy sparks your mind, like this video and subscribe to the channel. I am Aristotle. I was born in 384 BCE in the city of Stagira in Macedonia, a piece of land where the mountains and sea embrace each other. My father, Nicomachus, served as a physician in the court of King Amyntas of Macedonia. His hands brought healing, while his mind sought to unlock the secrets of nature. My mother, Phaestus, came from the fertile lands of Chalkidiki, a quiet woman who carried a deep wisdom. Their presence lit the first sparks of my childhood. One whispered to me the mysteries of the body, the other of the soul. Stagira was a wild and beautiful place. In the mornings, as the sun awoke behind the mountains, so did I. I would follow my father into the forest's depths. He would kneel and point to a plant. This, Aristotle, cleanses the lungs, he'd say. Then he'd gently scoop up a bug in his palm. Look how this tiny creature moves with such perfect order, he'd add. I'd stare wide-eyed and ask, Father, why does this plant heal? Why does this insect move like that? He would smile and say, everything in nature has a reason, my son. Everything serves a purpose. It was then that the first sparks lit up in my mind. Questions like, why and how became the companions of my soul. The sea murmured right next to our home. As the waves crashed against the rocks, they sang a song of their own. One day, my father and I were sitting on a hill, watching the sunset. The sky was ablaze, reds and oranges blending together. Father, I asked, why does the sun set? Where does it go? He looked at the sea and said, the sun stays where it is, son. It's the earth that turns. That simple sentence stirred a storm in my mind. The earth moves? Then why don't we fall? What did this dance of the heavens and earth mean? That single thought sparked my earliest wonderings about the cosmos. As for my mother, she was a world all her own. In the evenings, with the fire crackling beside us, she would tell us stories, tales of gods, heroes, and humans. The one that moved me most was about Prometheus stealing fire and giving it to humankind. Mother, I asked, why was Prometheus punished? He did something good. Her eyes would fill with a quiet sadness as she said, to defy the will of the gods takes great courage, but Prometheus was filled with love for humankind. That opened a new door in my mind. What is justice? What is goodness? Can a man stand against the gods? My mother's stories wove the magic of myth into my spirit, while my father's teachings planted the seeds of a science in my mind. But those beautiful days vanished like the wind. I lost my father when I was just 10 years old. When he left, it felt like a part of my world broke away. The memories of walking through the forest with him, the names of plants, the secrets of insects, remained only as shadows. My mother, too, fell ill not long after. Her fragile body couldn't hold on to life. I was orphaned. The mountains of Stagira began to whisper loneliness to me. My uncle, Proxenus, took me in. He opened his arms with love and said, Aristotle, your path lies toward wisdom. He wanted me to go to Athens, to Plato's Academy. There, he said, you will find answers to your questions. As I left Stagara, I looked back one last time at the land where I was born. The mountains stood tall. The sea sang a sorrowful song. My childhood was left behind, on those hills, among those waves. But a fire was burning inside me. I wanted to know, to understand, to question. I set out for Athens, toward an unknown future, in search of wisdom. This journey was not an end, but a beginning. My father's teachings about the order of nature, my mother's stories that stirred my soul, they came together in my mind. Everything has a reason, my father used to say. And I asked, but what is that reason? The universe stretched before me like a riddle, and I was determined to solve it. Let me know if you want a more poetic, simplified, or academic version as well. When I arrived in Athens, I was just 17, a young man from the wild hills of Stagira, suddenly immersed in a city that felt both strange and mesmerizing. The streets pulsed with life. The marketplaces buzzed with voices, with ideas and goods exchanged like breath. But my heart was set on one place, Plato's Academy. It wasn't just a school, nestled beneath the shadows of olive trees. Beyond the city's edge, it felt like a temple, built not of stone, but of thought. The first time I saw Plato, he stood as a man in his 60s, white-bearded, calm, his gaze sharp, piercing, as if he could see the very structure of your mind. To be accepted into his presence was a moment I'll never forget. As I stepped into the academy, I was filled with excitement and a trace of fear. Will there be a place for me here, beside such a wise man? I wondered, but Plato greeted me with a warm smile. Welcome, boy from Stagira, he said. And so, my true education began. The academy opened my mind like spring sunlight on a closed flower. Mathematics, geometry, astronomy, philosophy, each subject a door, each lesson a world. Plato taught us about the theory of forms. Reality, he said, does not dwell in what your eyes can see. It lives beyond, in the realm of perfect ideas. To him, a table, a tree, a person, they were but shadows of a higher truth. At first, I listened in awe, but slowly, a quiet rebellion stirred inside me. One day, I asked, Master, I can touch this table. I can feel its surface. Isn't that real? Plato smiled. Your eyes may deceive you, Aristotle. Truth is something the mind alone must grasp. His words set my thoughts ablaze. Plato's ideas floated high above, like stars. But I was looking at the earth beneath my feet, the soil, the trees, the birds in the sky. Why must truth exist beyond all things? I asked myself. Doesn't this world, this one we see, hear, and touch, hold its own order, its own meaning? And so, I began to walk my own path, still a student of Plato, but no longer only a shadow. I was searching for my own light. Our days were filled with debate. Beneath the olive trees, we would gather, friends and thinkers, asking the universe its secrets. What is the soul? What is virtue? What does it mean to know? One day I asked, "What is knowledge?" Plato replied, "Knowledge is the memory of the forms." But I challenged him, "Master, I study this tree, its branches, its leaves. That too is knowledge, isn't it?" He paused. Then, with a quiet smile, he said, "You are the mind of the academy." And in that moment, I knew his words were both a compliment and a challenge. To me, Plato was like a mountain, distant, unreachable, yet guiding. The years I spent with him shaped my mind the way a sculptor chisels stone. When I first arrived at the academy, I absorbed his teachings like a sponge. Reality begins with the forms, he would say, and I, ever questioning, would ask, "But Master, where are these forms?" He would point to the sky. "There," he'd reply, "beyond the reach of the senses." Those words stirred something in me, something between wonder and doubt. One day, in the academy's garden, we found ourselves locked in a long debate. "Master," I asked, "this tree stands before us. The wind moves its branches. Is this the form, or is this the real?" Plato fixed his eyes on mine. "The tree," he said, "is a shadow, Aristotle. The true tree is its form." I said nothing, but inside me, storm was rising. If this tree is a shadow, I thought, why can I touch it? Why does this shadow give me fruit? In that moment, I felt it. I had begun to step away from Plato's path. He gazed toward the heavens, but I was looking at the soil beneath my feet. This parting was not a quarrel. It was an awakening. I held deep respect for him. His intellect flowed like a river, but I needed to follow a different stream. Every moment with him was both a gift and a weight. Knowledge is recollection, he would say. But I believed knowledge was found in observation, and from that seed, my philosophy was born. Logic, nature, reality, they were the fruit of my questions. Plato once called me the mind of the academy. Those words filled me with pride, but they also placed a burden on my shoulders. In those years by his side, I was no longer just a student. I had become a thinker, but the transformation was not easy. I asked myself over and over again, what is truth? Plato's world of ideal forms, or the world I could see with my own eyes? The academy, to me, was a laboratory. Beneath the shade of the olive trees, I sat with students and dissected the universe. I studied logic. I asked, what does it mean to think correctly? I studied nature. I observed everything, from the wings of birds to the gills of fish, and I wondered, where does this order come from? Plato's world of forms felt distant. I was searching for truth here, in this world. I would say to my students, look, see how this ant carries its burden. Is that not purpose? Their eyes would widen and they would listen. Biology, zoology, metaphysics. I pursued them all. To me, the academy wasn't a school. It was a field of discovery. And when Plato died, I left. But the academy left its mark on my soul. I remained at the academy for 20 years. I learned and I taught. I developed thoughts on logic. I observed nature. I studied the mysteries of animals and plants. But in 347 BCE, Plato died. His passing left a void within me. The leadership of the academy passed to his nephew, Speusippus. But for me, I could no longer stay. I decided to leave Athens and journey to Assos. The academy had given me much: the power to question, to reason, to know. But more than that, it helped me find my own path. Plato's world of forms was beautiful, like poetry, but I wanted to listen to the music of nature. When I, Aristotle, stepped out from Plato's shadow, the stone roads of Athens faded behind me. The academy had carved my mind like a sculptor-shaped stone. But now, I needed to find my own voice. In 347 BCE, I arrived in Assos, a harbor where the wind whispered and the sea greeted me like an old friend. Hermias, the ruler, a former student of Plato, welcomed me into his palace. Under his roof, I planted the seeds of wisdom. My days in Assos flowed like a dance with nature. Each morning, I watched the waves strike the shore, each one telling the rhythm of the universe. Hermias's court became a hearth for lovers of philosophy. With my students, I questioned the causes of existence, the origins of motion, but my true teacher was nature, the grass between the rocks, the creatures in the depths of the sea. They all spoke to me. Why do we exist? I asked myself. Must everything have a purpose? One day, I met Pythias, the niece of Hermias. Her eyes reflected the Troves depths of the Aegean. Her words soaked my mind like a spring rain. In time, my heart turned toward her. We married. She was not only my wife, but my friend, my companion. Together, we sought to unravel the secrets of the natural world. Each moment with her taught me the value of life. When we moved to Lesbos, nature embraced me once more. The island was rich with earth, olive trees, and the ever-present sea. I studied starfish, octopuses, mussels, and their movements spoke of a hidden order. Where does this perfect harmony come from? I wondered. Each living being had its own function. This became the root of my teleological view, that everything in nature exists for something. Poetic insert for a deeper dramatic tone. Morning comes. I wake with the waves. My steps echo on the stones of Assos. The wind sings in my ear. Listen, it says. Listen to the breath of the universe. The sea, a blue mirror, reflects my soul. The sky, a question with no end, scatters my thoughts. Pythias arrives, holding an olive branch. With her eyes, each morning begins anew. In Lesbos, there is life in the blossoms. In the sea, in each hidden leaf, the octopus dances in the water. The mussel falls silent, but in its silence, it speaks peace. Why? I ask. Why this order, this harmony? Nature replies. Look, see, think, seeker. In Lesbos, with my students, we began to classify plants and animals. Those observations would later give life to my Historia Animalium. Nature unfolded before me like a book. On every page, a new story, a new piece of wisdom. But peace did not last. Hermias was captured by the Persians and executed. His death left a wound in my heart. Assos and Lesbos became lands filled with sorrow. As I searched for a new path, a message came from King Philip of Macedon. He wanted me to tutor his son, Alexander. I left Lesbos behind and set out for Pella. That chapter in my life was both a refuge and a revelation. I learned the language of nature, tasted love, and felt the sting of loss. So let me tell you this about my time in Assos and Lesbos. Life is a journey of inquiry, and at every step, nature and humankind hold up a mirror to us. When I arrived in Macedonia, the grand palace of Pella welcomed me with open arms. King Philip II, strong, sharp, and gracious, stood at its helm, and there was his son, Alexander, just 13. His eyes burned with fire. His mind shimmered with curiosity. Teaching him became more than duty. It became an adventure. I taught Alexander everything, from philosophy to ethics, from politics to science. We read the epics of Homer together. We spoke of Achilles' fury, Hector's honor. Alexander would say, "I will become a hero." And I would reply, "Heroism is complete only with wisdom." One day, I asked him, "What is a kingdom?" He answered, "Power and victory." I said, "No, a kingdom is raising your people through justice." He grew quiet, thoughtful. "What kind of king should I be?" he asked. "One who loves his people," I told him. "One who seeks their good above all." Those talks shaped his soul. In Macedonia, I continued my study of nature. In the palace gardens, I watched flowers bloom, birds take flight. Alexander would sometimes stand beside me, asking, "Why is this flower red?" Or, "Why does this bird sing like that?" And I would explain the order of nature, the purpose behind every being. His questions fed my teaching, and his wonder kept my spirit alive. But the palace was not only a place of wisdom, it swirled with intrigue, games of power. Philip was sometimes clever, ambitious. I tried to stay clear of the storm, but at times I was drawn in. One day, the king summoned me. "What do you think of Alexander?" he asked. "Brilliant and gifted," I said, "but rebellious. The fire of youth," I added. "It will calm with time," Philip smiled. "I hope so," he said. Poetic insert for emphasis and tone. Morning in Pella begins with the sun. Minds awaken with Alexander. Stone paths echo with thoughts begun. Homer's verses on our lips. Achilles' rage in every breath. Glory whispered through ancient scripts. "What is greatness?" I ask. He listens. Youth gleams in his eyes. Like 1,000 glistens. Flowers bloom. Birds ascend the air. "Why?" he asks. "Why such color? Why such care?" "Because nature holds a pattern," I reply. "An endless harmony beneath the sky. In the palace's shadow, intrigues weave and spin. But true power begins not with the sword, but with the mind within. Justice is the crown, the soul of the throne. Wisdom, the deepest truth a ruler must own." Alexander's education lasted 3 years. I shared with him Plato's ideals, Socrates' questions, and my own system of logic. He shone especially in rhetoric, and the time we spent together, it shaped him into a king, and me. into a thinker fulfilled. In 340 BCE, he took his place beside his father, and I chose to return to Athens. As I left, I gave him one final piece of advice. Let your strength be balanced with wisdom. True victory is won in hearts. Macedonia was a test for the teacher and the philosopher. And now, let me sum up those years. I left Alexander a legacy, and that legacy may have changed the course of the world. I am Aristotle, and when I returned to Athens in 335 BCE, a fire was burning inside me. I had left Plato's academy behind, but my thirst for wisdom had never faded. Athens embraced me once more, with its familiar scent, its stone-paved roads, its bustling agora. But this time, I came not as a student, but with a new purpose, to chart my own path, to build my own garden of thought. And so, I founded the Lyceum. It was not a school. It was a sanctuary, a temple of discovery. In the shade of olive trees, I walked with my students, seeking truth together. The Lyceum was born in the east of Athens, near the sacred grove of Apollo Lykios. Once a place where athletes trained, it now became the ground of thought, of debate, of relentless questioning. Each morning, we walked, and from those walks, we earned a name, Peripatetics, for we moved constantly, thinking with nature beneath our feet. I would tell them, knowledge is not locked behind walls. It whispers in the wind, it rests on the branches of trees. Their eyes would shine, their ears would drink in every word. There, we questioned everything. What is the universe? Why does it function? Why does man think? Such questions sharpened our minds like blades. I taught them logic, the steady road of reason. A thing is either true or it is false, I'd say. But they would ask, Master, is life really that simple? I did not even smile. No, I said, but logic is our guide through chaos. They took notes. They debated. They challenged me. And that made me glad. For a mind that does not question is a mind already dead. One morning, a student came to me. Plato used to speak of ideas. He said, What do you say? Paused, then answered. Plato looked to the heavens, searching beyond the clouds for truth. But I look to the earth. Reality is here, in what we touch, what we see. That was the spirit of the Lyceum. We were devoted to the world we could sense, not to ideals, but to beings, not to shadows, but to what is real. The Lyceum was a family. My students were my children. With them, I explored nature, ethics, politics, everything. Our library grew. Scrolls and tablets filled with knowledge lined our walls. In my lectures, I spoke and wrote at the same time. But peace is rarely permanent. Athens trembled under the tides of politics. The shadow of the Macedonians loomed. I tried to remain distant from such storms. But one day, a friend warned me, Aristotle, your ties to Macedonia put you at risk. Replied, I serve knowledge, not kings. But still, a shadow grew within me. Even though the Lyceum was my paradise, the world beyond was at our gates. Poetic insert. At dawn, the Lyceum awakens. Thought sprouts beneath olive branches. My footsteps carve questions into the soil. Each step a riddle, each riddle a truth. Why are we here? A voice asks. To know, I say. Life is a puzzle. The wind caresses the leaves. The sky listens. Nature thinks with us. Logic flows like a clear river. Truth stands tall, a distant mountain peak. Plato's shadows dance in the sky. But I hold the pulse of the earth. The Lyceum is a garden. Its flowers bloom in inquiry. Every leaf holds an answer, every branch a promise. In the silence of night, the stars bear witness. Knowledge is a journey, a precious gem without end. This era marked a new beginning for me. The Lyceum was the soil where my thoughts blossomed, where my students grew. Together, we sought to understand the order of the universe. Each day, we learned more than the last, and yet, I often asked myself, can I ever know enough? How near or far is truth? These questions tired me, but they also kept me alive. The Lyceum was not a school. It was a way of life. It was the mirror of my soul. There, with my students, I sought the secrets of the cosmos, and with every step, nature whispered to us, and with every question, we came closer to ourselves. The years I spent at the Lyceum were the years my thoughts took shape on paper, the birth of my works. My mind blossomed like a spring branch, and my hand never let go of the pen. Logic, metaphysics, ethics, politics, natural science. I wrote on every subject. These works became my legacy. But back then, I wrote only to answer the questions burning inside me. First came the organon. Logic was the foundation of thought for me. In categories, I defined what things are. In on-interpretation, I showed the ways to distinguish truth from falsehood. In analytics, I set the rules of reasoning. A thing, I would say, cannot both be and not be at the same time. A simple, yet powerful, principle. My students used these rules as tools, sharpening their minds like blades. Then came metaphysics. What is being as being? I asked myself. This question troubled my mind the most. I opposed Plato's theory of ideas. Reality, I said, is the union of form and matter. Everything carries potential, and over time, potential becomes actual. I pondered through nights. What is the essence of the universe? Why do we exist? These questions led me into a labyrinth, but every time I found a way out. While writing on ethics, I presented a practical philosophy of life. In Nicomachean Ethics, Haber said, virtue is the mean between extremes. Courage lies between cowardice and recklessness. Generosity between stinginess and wastefulness. Master, my students would ask, can we always find the mean? No, I would reply, but seeking it is what makes us human. This became their guide. Politics fascinated me. Man is by nature a political animal, I said. Society completes the individual. I studied all forms of government, monarchy, aristocracy, democracy. The best government, I said, is one ruled by virtue. But in my heart, I added, sadly, this remains a dream. My love for nature revealed itself in Historia Animalium, fish, birds, mammals. I studied hundreds of creatures, recorded their structure, their behavior. Everything, I would say, is directed toward a purpose. This was my belief in the teleological order of the universe. My students asked, "Why so much detail?" "Because," I replied, "nature is the book of truth." Poetic insert. My pen waltzes with papyrus. Thoughts rise to the sky with ink. Logic, a chain, its links strong. Metaphysics, a cloud, an uncertain bond. Ethics, a path, its middle golden. Politics, a map, its lines wandering. Nature, a song, every note alive. The universe, a choir, its voices misleading. What is this order? I ask the night. A purpose, say the stars, an endless rhyme. In the candle's glow, hours melt away. Truth, a shadow, drawing near as we gaze. In Lyceum's embrace, my works grow, every word a seed, every page a furrow. What is knowledge? I ask the void. Life, answers the cosmos, an eternal birth. As I wrote my works, I would lose myself. Nights spent alone in the silence of the Lyceum, with my thoughts as my only company. How deep is truth? I would ask. How far can knowledge reach? These questions both exhausted me and gave me strength. My students read, debated, and sometimes criticized my writings. One day, someone said, "Master, these writings will one day change the world." "Perhaps," I replied, "but the true matter is that thought never dies." Writing was for me as vital as living. My works were the fruits of my mind, and the Lyceum was the garden in which they grew. With every line, I understood the universe a little more. With every work, I found myself a little deeper. I, Aristotle, walking through the narrow streets of Athens in 323 BCE, heard whispers trailing me like shadows, friend of the Macedonians. The death of Alexander the Great had pierced this city like a dagger. The years I spent with him, tutoring him at the royal court in Macedonia, now stood before me like a crime. Athens swelled with anger, kindling a fire of rebellion against the Macedonians. The debates echoing in the garden of the Lyceum no longer offered me peace. They promised danger. One morning, my friend Antipater came to me, his face shadowed with worry. "Aristotle," he said, "rumors are spreading. They will accuse you of impiety, just like Socrates." I fell silent. My mind immediately traveled to Socrates' end, how he drank the hemlock, marching to death in pursuit of truth. Will I share the same fate? I asked myself. But a voice inside said, "No, the time has not yet come. Athens could not sacrifice another philosopher." I made my decision. I would go to Chalcis, the land where my mother was born. Saying goodbye to my students was hard. They gathered in the courtyard of the Lyceum, their eyes filled with sorrow, their lips with questions. "Master," they asked, "why do you leave?" "I am not fleeing," I said. "I am leaving to keep wisdom alive." I entrusted the Lyceum to my most trusted student, Theophrastus. "Do not let the light of thought go out," I told him. He bowed his head. His eyes shone like a promise. As I left Athens, the city's silhouette shrank in my eyes. The agora, the temples, the theaters, all turning into memories. This city, I thought, is the cradle of both wisdom and ignorance. Socrates' spirit seemed to walk beside me. "You are doing what is right," it said. Yet a question gnawed inside me. Am I afraid? No, this was not cowardice. It was a move of existence itself. Knowledge must live. I was its bearer. When I arrived in Chalcis, the sea greeted me with its waves. My mother's house was simple, but a warm refuge. Here, I would gather and review my thoughts, reflect on my works, but my mind was still in Athens. Is the Lyceum still standing? I asked myself. Are my students still in pursuit of truth? These questions kept me awake at night. One day, wandering the slopes of Chalcis, I looked out at the sea. The waves crashed on the shore, then pulled back. Life is like this, I said to myself, a coming and going. What would I leave behind? My works, my students. Would they withstand the tides of time? Maybe, I thought, maybe I will be erased. But then, a voice rose within me. What matters is the search itself. Poetic insert. Athens, a home woven with love, but its anger is cold and heavy as stone. Friend of the Macedonians, a voice whispers low. The streets murmur this accusation. Lyceum, a garden with broken branches. My students, their eyes filled with tears. Don't go, they say, but I know the path is clear. Wisdom is sometimes born through farewell. Chalcis, my mother's voice, a calm heartbeat. The sea opens its arms, saying, rest. My mind lingers in Athens, shadowed and dim, echoing on the stones of the Lyceum. Waves come and go in a steady rhythm. Life, a song of beginnings and ends. What remains? I ask. A trace? A word? Thought, the wind replies. An endless mark. In Chalcis, alone but serene, nature offered me its final lessons. Everything, I said, moves in a cycle. Birth, life, death, all part of the grand harmony of the universe. I was a part of that harmony. Small, but a thinking part. Perhaps, I thought, this is the greatest gift. My departure from Athens was not an end, but a rebirth. Wisdom is not bound to a place. It lives in mind and spirit. Chalcis became a refuge for my body and freedom for my thoughts. In Chalcis, my days passed quietly, yet full. Illness wrapped around my body like a shadow, but my mind still soared sharp as a hawk. I reviewed my works, took notes, struggling to unravel the final secrets of the universe. Death stood gently at my door, but I looked at it not with fear, but as a friend. One morning, I could hardly rise from my bed. My body felt heavy as a burden, yet my soul was as light as clouds. Through the window, I saw the sea. The sky was a deep blue cloak. Clouds drifted softly. A beautiful day, I thought, worthy of a farewell. My servant hurried to my side. Master, he said, shall I fetch the doctor? No, I replied. My time has come. He tried to hide his tears, but I smiled at him. Do not cry, I said. Everything is part of an order. In my final days, I weighed my life, my journey, which began in Stagira, shaped in Athens, Assos, Lesbos, Macedonia, now ended in Chalcis. What has this path taught me? I asked myself. I learned the infinity of knowledge. Every answer breeds a question. Every discovery reveals a new mystery. Am I happy? Yes, because I questioned, sought, thought. Is it enough? No, but that is the essence of being human. One night, I gazed at the stars. The sky was a canvas of infinity. The universe, I said, how magnificent, how mysterious. I was not even a speck in this vastness, but I tried to understand it. Perhaps, I thought, death is joining this infinity. This thought comforted me. In my final moments, my friends came to my side. Theophrastus held my hand. Tightly, Master, he said, the Lyceum will carry on your legacy. I know, I replied, but the true legacy is the courage to think. I closed my eyes. My breath slowed gently, and then everything was wrapped in silence. Poetic insert. The last day in Chalcis, leaves fall softly. My body, a fragile branch, breaking and fading. But my mind, a wind, free and clear, rises to the sky, seeking the infinite. The sea calls, come, it says, to peace. The stars whisper, you are with us. Am I ready? I ask. For this journey? Yes, says my soul. All is in place. Life, a dream, near awakening. Knowledge, a torch, tearing through the night. What have I gained? I ask, the endless question. What have I given? I ask. A handful of hope, Theophrastus, beside me, hand in hand. Siste, he says, but I know I must pass. My eyes close, the world fades, the universe enfolds me, an eternal light. Death was not an end for me, but a transformation. My body returned to the earth, but my thoughts, my works, my students lived on. In my final moments, I say this: life was a quest, death, the last step of that quest, but truth was infinity itself. İstersen için daha kısa, vurucu cümlelerle ya da farklı bir duygu yoğunluğunda da düzenleyebilirim. Nasıl?